Marciano's record is 49-0, and if Mayweather is a big fan of history, that will be on his mind as well. Joe, last question regarding this particular fight. If you give us a couple predictions. One, do you think the fight will happen? Two, if so, when will they sign it? And three, if they actually do fight, who's going to win and how?
All right, so I, against my better judgment, based on history, I do think that the fight's going to happen. I think that it will be signed this week. I think that they were close over the weekend, and they're getting closer. The number being thrown around right now is $250 million. Obviously, when it's that type of money, you're going to do everything to make sure that you're doing everything right. So I think it will happen. I'm not surprised it's taking a little bit longer than they thought. I don't think it's a bad sign. I think it's probably a good sign. So I think it'll happen this week. We're looking at Tuesday, Wednesday right now. I think we'll see something by Friday before the weekend. And I gotta go with Mayweather to win it. I think that Freddie Roach will have Pacquiao prepared. I think they will both be as ready for this fight as they've ever been. And if that's the case, you're going to see Pacquiao going for power, going for his changing styles, adapting all of the things that have made him a brilliant fighter. And you're going to see the one thing that will always define Floyd Mayweather in the ring, his defense and his counters. And I think that will be enough to win it. I don't see a KO for any side. I think it'll go the full length, and Mayweather will win by decision in 12 rounds.
All right. So we'll keep an eye on that, and again, if it does happen, it'll be the biggest fight in history in terms of money. Joe, let's switch gears. Let's talk basketball. First, as we affectionately call him, Brother Amari. He came to Israel in summer 2009. He's a part owner of Hapoel Yerushalayim, and says that he's Jewish. Apparently, the Knicks and him have reached an agreement of a buyout. Tell us why that occurred and the specific details of the buyout.
Definitely. So, one thing that we see a lot in the NBA around this time of year and around the trade deadline is veteran players, older players coming to the end of their careers, stuck on bad teams, wanting the chance for a title. Amari has spent the past 5 years with the Knicks. They haven't had any type of success. They've made the playoffs, but making the playoffs in the East is a not very good seed really says nothing, because you can make the playoffs with a losing record with the current format. So Amari, with his various problems that he's had, his knee problems, his eye problems, he knows he's not getting any younger. People look at his age and they say, well, he's 32 years old. That's not old. Professional athletes, it's a long time to be doing it to your body, first of all. Second of all, Amari came out of high school. So even though he's 32, he's going to be coming up on 15 years in the NBA, which takes a toll on anybody, no matter how healthy, and he hasn't had so much health lately. So he negotiated a buyout with the Knicks so that he could go to a contender. All the teams mentioned were teams from the Western Conference, any of which could come out and win the conference and have a legitimate shot to win the championship. Neither side released the details of the buyout, but most people, the consensus seems to be from sources that Amari will receive his full salary, the $23.4 million he has left on this year, since the season's about halfway, 60% over. He would have had a 40% prorated of that. So about, $11.5 million, $11 million left. It seems to be that he will get paid that full amount, but the veterans minimum of over $1 million that he'll get from signing with whichever team he goes to, that will go back to the Knicks. So the Knicks get to save a little money. They get to clear Amari's contract off of the books now. Maybe look at making some moves, adding a player from the D League. The Knicks are the worst team in the NBA right now. This season has been done for a long time for them. So the only thing that they can do now, the one positive, is they can use this to test out other players and start gauging young players for next year. So it really is a win-win for both sides. And Amari spoke about how hard it was going to be, spoke about it in the week leading up to the All-Star break last week. And he said, New York has done so much for him. He has a really close relationship with Knicks owner James Dolan. He might be the only one with a close relationship with Jim Dolan, but he respected him and appreciated everything that Dolan did for him. But in the end, he knows he doesn't have very much time left in the NBA, and he wants to win a championship. Got close with Phoenix, didn't happen, never got close with the Knicks. Now's his chance to go sign with a contender and get that elusive championship ring.
Joe, what I'm curious about is why would the Knicks agree to pay the 40% remaining on this season's salary? If it's a buyout, he's not going to play for the team. He's not going to work for the team for the last 40% of the season. Why would they pay him that money?
That is a great question. I am really not sure myself. I've been trying to figure that out, and I really am not sure if it's something with deciding on the roster spot and what they could get out of it, but that's not worth the that's not worth the $11 million. So I'm really not sure. Maybe it comes down to it's already paid, it's on the books, and they're just going to give it up. We know famously that his deal wasn't insured. Probably making it one of the worst deals in NBA history, since it was a 5-year, $99.7 million deal that they had to pay all of. But maybe there's something behind the scenes that we don't know about. Maybe it's a marketing thing. They still get to sell Amari jerseys, although I wouldn't think that would really be a hot commodity right now that he's no longer on the team. But yeah, all the sources seem to say that he's gonna get his money and sign for nothing. The Knicks put him on waivers, which means had another team signed him without letting him clear waivers, they would have absorbed that $23.4 million. But obviously, no team is going to pay that, and no team believes he's worth that much money, so they let him clear waivers. That means the Knicks are on the hook, and he can sign with whoever else.
Again, you're listening to the Ari Louis Show here on Israel National Radio, Root Sheva. And you can email me at arilouisshow@hotmail.com. My guest is Joe Robbins from OMG Poetry, the founder, and of course he's a contributing editor to the Jerusalem Post. Joe, looking back when he was on Phoenix and he left for that big contract, approximately $100 million, some people in Phoenix perhaps were mad at management. How could you let the team's best player go? But in hindsight, it was brought at the time, Amari's knees. Amari might be past his prime. And in hindsight, it looks like a very, very wise move. The Suns didn't retain his services, correct?
Definitely. It's one of those tough decisions because like you said, the fans had so much invested in him. He was a great player for Phoenix. He was an all-star. I mean, he had multiple years in Phoenix where he was a top 10 player in the NBA. No question about it. Where he scored over 25 points a game, was averaging 9 rebounds a game. He had a great career in Phoenix, and even with his relatively bad numbers with the Knicks because of limited minutes, because of the injuries, he still had a great career overall, which speaks to how great it was in Phoenix. But I think it comes down to the type of deal that we see in the NBA sometimes, where one team is basically willing to bid with themselves and pay a crazy amount to get a guy that they want. When the Knicks said, we'll pay you $100 million, essentially $20 million a year, which we know is obviously backloaded, but he was never getting under $15 million a year in the early part of the deal, and they knew that they weren't able to take an insurance policy out of it. They were risking literally throwing $100 million down the drain. And that's something that no other team should have done. Arguably, the Knicks shouldn't have done it as we've seen. So I think it was a great deal with what the Suns did. It reminds me of when Baron Davis, after leading the Warriors to the upset of the Mavericks, when the Warriors were the 8 seed, the Mavericks were the 1, and it was really all Baron Davis, and the Clippers signed him to a 3-year, $13 million deal. No Warriors fan wanted to see him go, but with his age and injury history, no Warriors fan wanted to see him stay for $13 million a year, guaranteed for 3 years. I think it was this same kind of deal. It was hard for Suns fans to see Ari leave, but he just wasn't worth that money because of the health concerns. And if there's one thing we know about health concerns in professional sports, in every professional sport, it's that it will come and bite you at some time. If you have those injury concerns, they will get you. We're seeing it now with Kobe, which we've discussed many times over the past couple of seasons. Kobe never had injury concerns. Now he can't stay healthy. Ari was at that point in his career where it looked like he wasn't going to be able to stay healthy. He had one healthy season with the Knicks, and then in the rest of his time there, he played half of the possible games.
Now, let's go to Kobe, because he came out with a weird statement. He said that the Lakers caused the 2011 lockout, or the lockout happened because of the Lakers. It sounded like a pretty weird statement. I know Kobe kind of doesn't have a lot to do right now. I'm sure he's very frustrated with his injury and where the Lakers are at, and his career looks to be about done. Tell us what exactly he meant by that statement, as well as if his career is about done at this point.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what he was going for with that one. The lockout shortened season in 2011, we all know was bad for the NBA, bad for the Players Association, bad for the owners, although I guess we know the owners did come out on top financially. But his exact quote was, "It was designed to restrict the Lakers and our marketability." And the question was asked, the Lakers specifically or teams like the Lakers? And he said, there's only one team like the Lakers. So he was really saying that the NBA colluded, all of the owners colluded to stop the Lakers, that the Lakers would have won a championship, but the lockout prevented them from doing it, and the lockout was the only way to make it happen. I can't imagine that Kobe actually believes that. It's so ridiculous and ludicrous. And even if it was true, he has to be smart enough to know that saying it will make him sound crazy, even if it was true. So I think it's a combination of, it was just All-Star weekend. He wants to be back in the limelight. And like you said, he's injured and has way too much time on his hands, so he can talk about this. I don't know. I'm not really sure. He doesn't really have an axe to grind with any of the people he was referencing or any of the people he was targeting with the NBA, which seemed to be mostly David Stern, commissioner, who has now retired. So yeah, it seems like Kobe being Kobe, for whatever reason he decided to go in this direction. It's nothing we've ever heard from him or anyone else beforehand, but it came up during this interview.
Now, Kobe, maybe he's saying that because he's one title shy of Jordan, and that's something he wants to throw out there, that he would have gotten his sixth title if it wasn't for Slaga. I don't know what he means exactly. Last few minutes we have left with you, let's talk about your team, the Warriors, because they're red hot. They have Steve Kerr, who is a U of A alum, and we like Steve Kerr. He's a good guy. But the problem is, Joe, what I'm concerned about you from your perspective and the team's perspective is usually teams that are high-power offensive teams don't do so well in the playoffs. Usually it is the defensive, grinded-out half-court teams. So talk about why the Warriors are doing so well in the regular season and how well you think they'll do in the postseason.
I think the biggest thing is Steve Kerr has learned to make the offense efficient. Last year with the Splash Brothers, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, the Warriors looked like a great offensive team, but if you looked at the stats, they really weren't very good and nowhere near what they could have been with their talent and their potential. It didn't come through because they were winning a lot of games and they were a 51-win team and all of the different things, but they were middle of the pack in the NBA in terms of efficiency. This year, they haven't been under top 5 in any of the major offensive categories, and they've been number 1 in the vast majority of them for most of the year, including big stretches this season where they were the most offensive teams, the most efficient offensive team, had the best pace, had the most assists, etc., etc. So that's the high-powered offense you're talking about, which is incredibly fun to watch. It's exciting, and we see that that's a lot of people have become Warriors fans, and as a Warriors fan, we definitely welcome all of them. It's great to see the team in this position. In terms of the playoffs, as you mentioned, it's a whole different ball game. I think what the Warriors have for them that the other teams, many of them, haven't, is the Warriors are also great defensively. That's something that Mark Jackson did put into play that they've been able to build on and maximize this year under Steve Kerr. Currently, the Warriors are the second best defensive team in the NBA in terms of defensive efficiency. The last team to lead the NBA in both offensive and defensive efficiency was a Michael Jordan-led Bulls championship team that won 72 games, best record in NBA history. Additionally, the Warriors have the second highest point differential and the highest point differential, since that Bulls team. So that shows you not only are they winning, they're winning by a lot. So I think that defense is the difference and the reason that even when the game slows down, you still got all-stars, you still got superstars who can hit the big shot when they need to, because you know that they'll be close and in the game due to that defense. And one thing that other teams sort of bemoan when they look at the Warriors and rival GMs have complained about is the Warriors have David Lee and Andre Iguodala coming off of the bench. both are max players, former All-Stars, and they would be starting on a lot of teams in the NBA, and they're not even the sixth man on the Warriors. So I think the depth, all of that, but the biggest thing is going to be Andrew Bogut's health, just like it was last playoffs when they lost to the Clippers. He is the anchor, and he is really the rock of that defense, and he is maybe the best passing center in the NBA in terms of the offensive end. So I think the Warriors are right to be considered the best team in the NBA right now, and all the power rankings released today, they were back to number one, which I think is deserved. But it'll be interesting to see. I think the Atlanta Hawks are the real deal in the East. And the Memphis Grizzlies, a lot of people said when the Dallas Mavericks acquired Rajon Rondo that they were contenders right away, and that was the biggest trade of the year. And right when the Grizzlies traded for Jeff Green, even when it was rumored before they traded for Jeff Green from the Celtics, I said that was the trade of the year, because the only thing Memphis was missing, we always talk about how it takes a point guard and a center. Point guards and centers are the ones who win championships. Memphis had Mike Conley, who very easily could have been an all-star. Marc Gasol at center, who is an all-star. The only thing they were lacking was a wing scorer, and that's what Jeff Green brings them. So I think the Warriors are going to have an extremely tough time in the West, but for right now, until someone proves otherwise, they're the favorites and the team to beat.
All right, great stuff as always. Joe Robbins from OMG Poetry. You can find him on Facebook, and you can find OMG Poetry on Facebook. Thanks so much for being on the Ari Louis Show today here on Israel National Radio.
Thanks so much, Ari. Always a pleasure.
Yes, indeed. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Again, email me, arilouisshow@hotmail.com. This is the Ari Louis Show here on IsraelNationalRadio.com.